So, welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. I'm happy that we can start our second keynote on time, and I'm delighted to introduce my friend and colleague, Dr. Manuela Widmer, who many of you know, who is a teacher for elemental music and dance education, Orff-Schulwerk. She was born in Germany and now lives in Carinthia in Austria. Manuela studied elemental music and dance at the Orff Institute between 1974 and 1978. She studied pedagogy at the University of Salzburg. Her master's degree focused on elemental music drama, and later her doctorate explored the pedagogy of the Orff Institute. Manuela taught at the Orff Institute from 1984 until 2014. For nearly 40 years, she has led teacher training courses internationally and is the author of different books and articles for music and dance education. Her major interest is elemental music drama, and she has developed concepts and directed over 100 productions for various groups of players worldwide. And she also works together with Michel as a clown duo, something very special. So we're delighted that you're here, Manuela.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you understand me?
Yes.
Very good. If you don't understand me anymore because I'm talking too quick or I'm talking here, please raise your hand. I would really like to correct then my standing or whatever. Yeah, good afternoon to all of you being present here, and to all colleagues from around the world, somewhere there, all the people who are with us and we don't know who they are. I'm very happy and grateful to have the opportunity to address you at this 2026 conference of the Orff Forum. Before we explore my topic together, however, I would like to ask you to participate in a brief activity. To set the tone, please watch the following very short video. What did you hear? Did you hear something? A little bit? And what did you see? Easy, some trees moving. A little 4-year-old boy from Sicily, Italy. His name is Toto. You see it there under the text and under the picture he was painting. He made an observation while watching trees swaying in the wind, just like we right now. And then he said this to his teacher. Originally in Italian, but with some translations. If you don't find your language listed here, I think it might be very easy for you to translate it quickly in your own language. Now let's try to say, to whisper, or even to sing this sentence in your own language, and all at the same time, in a row, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. Always change the expression. Sing one time, whisper next time, make a break, and then say it a little bit louder the 3rd time, whatever. Okay, you are ready to go. I give you a sign, and later on, I give you a 2nd sign as you gradually come to a close. Ready? Okay, now let's act out a short scene from the text. We don't need the whole sentence anymore. Instead, we will do what it describes. We will greet each other as trees or bushes. Now, each of you can decide if you stand up, probably at the edge you can just stand up, if you stay seated as you like. But in any case, you all transform into a tree or a bush with your arms forming branches. And now you greet each other. There are other trees behind you, beside you, in front of you. So you can turn a little bit in the wind, closer and farther away. Choose a greeting in your own language. You don't have to greet each other all the time. In between, we can hear the sounds of the waving trees. Okay, go. Buongiorno. Hello. Hi. Grüß Gott. Guten Tag. Nice to meet you. Thank you. You know, this is an unnatural situation that I stand here even a step higher, that you sit there a step down, and that you are so far away. So we need some experience together to feel that we are a community, that you are together. Before I start with my topic, I need to say something very personal from my biography, because I'm here in Athens, and this is something special for me. There were are three women, and they all 3 were my teachers, and I learned the most important things from them, and they influenced me to be what I am now in my profession. The first was Gunhild Ketman. I was a student with her when I was 10 years old, and I never forgot the situations of working with her. The second, at the same time, was Barbara Hasselbach, because she was my teacher when I was a child at the Orff-Institute too. And I loved her. She was so beautiful, so young, and she was moving in a fantastic way. So this was, for me, a very important door opener to my wish later to study at the Orff-Institute. And then Barbara Hasselbach again was my teacher during my studies. And the third woman was Polixene Mate. Because when I was 16, I started to visit the international summer courses in Salzburg, and she was there as a teacher. And we didn't have any CDs, we didn't have any tapes or records, but we had xylophones and drums and other instruments, and so we were making the music to dance the Greek dances. And I didn't count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, I just were dancing and learning the Greek dances without any problems. And later I met her several times again, and she influenced me a lot. So I'm very thankful to be here to see Anna, her granddaughter, and to have seen her son this morning, Alexander, and to see Angelika here too, that she went here to build up all the work. So let's start and come to the first point. The structure of this presentation. This common thread will guide you through my presentation. We have already started with the talking trees and greeting trees. And before I turn to my topic, which focuses on stories as the heart of creative works, our first question should be, how varied are the approaches to a comprehensive understanding of language and consequently for stories as well? I then did a bit of digging through the Orff-Schulwerk information from past years and found some interesting and thought-provoking perspectives of the meaning and use of language in our lessons. Finally, we want to take a closer look at the holistic aspect of our work and not forget to ask ourselves once again, are we truly ready to play? So, what kinds of stories are there, and what criteria can help us identify those that are particularly well suited for being brought to life with music, dance, and language in playgroups? After all this theory, I will show you some practical examples from my work and conclude my remarks with a summary graphic in the form of the Mubodadra palm tree. Then 3 questions await you, and I'm already looking forward to your insights, perspectives, and comments. Ready to go? Then let's start with the different ways of perceiving language. Haven't we all found ourselves at a loss for words in front of children at some point, unable to make ourselves understood to them or to understand them? Do we understand what children understand? Can we grasp how they see the world, what they think about, and how they feel? Do we understand the difference between our adult understanding of language and that of children? How can we improve our understanding and empathy? Finding answers to these questions will help us select appropriate texts, stories, or fairy tales that resonate with children's experiences and feelings. we can get a very good sense of what children understand when they try to explain something to us. From the way they describe things, we can infer their language use, vocabulary, and cognitive abilities, and thus also their ability to abstract from concrete impressions. They present to us their knowledge, their ideas, and impressions of the adult world and their world view. They are generous with connections they haven't yet grasped, imaginatively filling in the gaps when their knowledge runs out. But they also readily admit, I'm not quite sure about that. The logic of their thinking is sometimes striking, sometimes hair-raising. Children often look for comparisons drawn from their daily experiences. Sometimes they offer us associations that are difficult for us adults to grasp. So important for children and noticed is, what does it look like? How does it feel? What does this have to do with me? What does this mean for adults? Where can I experience this? Where can I get this? Do I like this? Have I seen this on the internet or TV? Have adults told me about this? By way of comparison, I gave a group of adults a term, and the same term was also explained by a child. To help you see the differences, look at that. An adult explains it like this. It has a head, 2 arms, hair, a face, 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. It has a gender. It can move around on its own. It can perform tasks. I choose the very easy example, yeah? So I think you know already what this is. Now let's have a look what the child is describing. It has bones. Bones, a head, eyes, a nose, a mouth, arms, legs, hands, and feet. When it's an adult, it works. When it's a child, it learns, not plays. It's interesting, yeah? It's not plays. When it's an adult, it can smoke cigarettes if it wants to, or cigars. When it's very old, it can smoke a pipe. I'm sure you know what it was. So there are much more examples, but I choose the really easy one for you too. But we could see the differences quite well. The children's way of communication. If we want to engage children in a creative process using language, text, stories, and individual words, we must first ask ourselves, when we perceive language in all its forms, do we understand and communicate it the same way children do? Children's thoughts, feelings, institutions, desires, and understanding are reflected in what they community and how they communicate to us, in their own words, through movement, sometimes only through movement. I show you. With gestures and mimicry. Don't you understand what I mean? Can't you see what I mean? What I show you? Clara and William Stern, the pioneers of research on children's language, they write, originally, the way a person behaves in any given situation is expressed through a holistic action of the organism in which gesture, facial expressions, and actions together with the accompanying sounds form an inseparable whole. So this statement serves as a clear guideline for us when we work with speech forms in our classroom. It influences both our selection of texts and our methodological approach. Now, when we tell a story or recite a poem, we want to give children the opportunity right from the start to immerse themselves in the text with their whole heart and souls. Only this fosters the concentration and motivation they need to later engage with the story's content and characters through play, song, speech, and dance. We need to change the way we think and act. We try to put ourselves in the children's shoes to see the world of language from their perspective, so that we can then behave in a way that allows them to follow us wholeheartedly. Specifically, this means then, speak freely. Don't just read, and make eye contact. Give the children time to understand, to react, to ask something. Let your hands speak too, and listen before you say it to every word before you say it. Sometimes softly, louder or loud, sometimes slowly, tiredly, explosively, sometimes cheerfully, mischievously, or horrified, sometimes sadly, whiningly, jubilantly, and 1,000 other ways. Werner Thomas, a leading expert on the Orff-Schulwerk. The Orff-Schulwerk is also known as Musica Poetica, has explored the significance of language in the Orff-Schulwerk and writes. The texts of Musica Poetica are full of vivid imagery rooted in the real world, yet at the same time pointing to an archetypal realm. Flowers and trees, birds and fish, sun and moon, houses and paths, flames and waves, God and the devil. Children are intimately familiar with all these things. But today, of course, with many more things emerging from the world of technology and the internet, Images of this kind are the humus of the soul, the breeding ground of the imagination. Ernst Wieblitz, my colleague, together with his wife Christiane Wieblitz, children's choir at the Orff-Institute, he has created many unforgettable theatrical productions featuring music, dance, and voice. He asked, what does a good picture book do? A picture book takes you on an inner journey, allowing you to discover other new external and internal worlds. Isn't it true that a person's essence consists of countless facets, including possibilities, each of which can be developed and brought to life when touched by the right medium? Ulrike Schrott, also a colleague of mine, long years at the Orff-Institute. Children and others gather in groups at schools to make music, dance, and put on theatrical performances together. My longtime colleague Ulrike Schrott has always criticized the fact that our Western societies have reduced music and dance to mere academic subjects. She calls for celebration. She sees picture books as a lifesaver in the classroom. They spark the imagination and guide everyone involved back to deeper layers of meaning, allowing the original function of music and dance to be experienced once again. Christine Schönherr, another colleague of mine responsible for the field of voice training and vocal presentation, emphasizes the close connection between speech work and movement. The speaker stands behind what he says. It is body language that transforms speech into a whole body act, one that also opens the door to the speaker's mental and emotional expression. And she also reminds us of Orff's fundamental idea. Speech exercises are linked to gesture, vocal gesture, pantomime, and dramatic expression, and, depending on the text, also to the instrument. Let's have a first summary of all these words. First, Werner Thomas. The texts of Musica Poetica of Schulwerk are full of vivid imagery rooted in the real world, and children are intimately familiar with all these things. Today, we need to be open for a lot of other texts and stories through all times, old and new. A picture book takes you on an inner journey, allowing you to discover other new external and internal worlds. Still, we should be open for such concentrated processes before we dive into action. Our Western societies have reduced music and dance to mere academic subjects. This might be still a fact, and still we should be willing to celebrate with our groups the power of music, dance, and speech, rather than only focus the learning process. It is body language that transforms speech into a whole body act, one that also opens the door to the speaker's mental and emotional expression, and to dance and joy and the feeling of togetherness. Teaching as a work of art, a holistic approach. Music and dance, playing and learning, art and education, these pairs are all first-degree relatives to one another. Follow me to some classic sources, very classic sources, but it's always worth revisiting them from time to time. You know that, of course. Elemental music is never music alone. It is connected to movement, dance, and speech. This is what Orff left us with. And Barbara Hasselbach takes this line of thought further. In addition to developing a foundation in dance and music, the focus is on each individual's own creative expression. And Joseph Derbolaf, an educational scientist, has reflected on the relationship between Orff's pedagogical intent and his artistic aspirations. He wrote, "Here, an educator has not lowering himself to the child's world. Here, a master has left his own mark without compromising his mature sensibility, certainly with pedagogical intent, but nonetheless with a full claim to artistry that he serves." One final thought takes us even further back in time. In 1938, Jan Huizinga, a Netherlands man, wrote the following about the relationship between music, dance, and play in his cultural anthropology work, Homo Ludens, a study of the origin of culture through play. If in everything that constitutes music, one is in fact constantly within the bounds of play, this applies to an even greater extent to its inseparable twin art, dance. To summarize these ideas, I have compiled all the key terms into a chart. We are all familiar with the interactions described here, and we base our lessons on them. Sometimes more, sometimes less, and depending on the topic, with a focus on either factual or personal aspects. The age group of the children in our classes also determine whether the playful aspect of our methodological approach will be emphasized more strongly. But even with very young children, it is possible to introduce them to music, dance, and theater as art forms. In any case, we want to place music and dance at the center of our work, as twin arts, artistic forms of play, as creative games, and as expressive arts. Now we come to the texts under the microscope. We distinguished between simple and complex stories. A story can be found in a single sentence, as we experienced together at the beginning of my talk. Stories can also be told in just 4 lines. And of course, in all longer texts, such as verse, poems, short stories, fairy tales, and picture books. A lecture could be given on every text form and its specific characteristics. I preferred in my work to focus on the picture book because it is precisely the combination of words and images that is so particularly inspiring for our profession. So, we have a first level, difficult level 1. Round-robin or round-robin texts. For example, travel stories around the world, animal stories. You all know the very hungry caterpillar. This might make sense for players ages 3 and up. The difficult level 2, stories of all kind of transformation, metamorphosis, and collages of dramatic moments. For example, stories about the seasons, fantasy stories, some new stories and picture books, for example, where the wild things are, for players from 5 up. And the difficult level 3, stories with dramatic plot lines and more complex scene structures. For example, almost all old and new fairy tales, King Bounce the First. We will meet him tomorrow if you like, a little bit more intimate. Ferdinand the Bull, and this is very well suitable for players ages 7 and up. Some criteria, some first impressions. Having spent the past few years delving deeply into the creation of picture books from the author's perspective, I have been able to identify more and more criteria that define a good picture book. However, these criteria are not necessarily the aesthetic aspects of the artistic quality of the story, its text, or the accompanying images or illustrations. That is often a matter of taste, and it is risky to make universal statements here about what is good or bad. But on the other hand, in my personal experience, the criteria I present now soon often go hand in hand with quality criteria, including aesthetic ones. But the rule always applies. Please decide for yourself what you like, what personally moves you, and whether you fully support using a particular story with your groups in class. This is worth discussing. So I made a summary of what many, many authors of picture books and other stories found out. So the speech material should be direct and natural, precise and light, simple and immediate, genuine and sincere, graceful, witty, artistic, cheerful, funny, quirky, cheeky, offbeat, serious, thoughtful, touching. Can the selected text, the rhyme, the poem, the story, be acted out, be interpreted musically, be danced, be painted with vocal sounds, provide inspiration for writing own songs, lyrics, or spoken word pieces? Some now in detail. So for me, the speech material should be a kind of visual and sounding speech material. This means it should contain words or terms that are capable of evoking strong visual and acoustic associations. On the one hand, the speech material should describe concrete situations and circumstances, But on the other hand, states of mind and objects can also be creatively expressed and set to music, such as the cozy warmth in a comfortable room that visibly and in person brings comfort to people. In one story we had that, and the children had so fantastic ideas. They showed me how they should think about this task. How can we share warmth to each other, with each other? And so one child made this. And I think I never would have this idea on my own. So I was very happy that I had the children with their good ideas. Or the fountain. In many fairy tales, golden balls and other things fall into fountains. Yeah, you can make a fountain stand, bring it on the stage. Then you need somebody to bring the fountain back after the scene. So this doesn't make sense. But you can play the fountain. And this fountain is looking back in alarm. Something is falling inside. And everybody knows something happens, and this is not so well. Let's see what happens after that. And of course, trees that turn toward a sad king, for example, whispering words of encouragement. This you can try out tomorrow when we play together some scenes from King Bounce the First. The speech material should move the group members, both internally and externally. This means trigger a sense of concern on the one hand and a desire to express themselves on the other hand, with a body or on an instrument or together with a partner. But there is one approach I want to warn you against. Never use your performers merely as props. If you need flowers, trees, houses, or a garden fence, have the children make them and the parents build them. In my productions, performers only portray an object when it becomes part of the action. That is, when it is given a human touch. A few well-proved solutions. It's getting, I know. You find a way of role decoration. A princess is assigned 3 ladies in waiting or sisters. This also lightens the load on the lead role, since spoken lines or a song can be divided among a group of actresses, and the acting and perhaps even a dance is much more fun when performed in a small group. Role doubling. Each animal in the Bremen town musicians, you know this old fairy tale, is played by 2 actors. There are 2 donkeys, 2 dogs, 2 cats, 2 roosters, and as many robbers as volunteer for the role. And just like that, an entire school class is kept busy. There is a role sharing. During the play, the actors playing a particular role change 1 to 3 times. So there are multiple kings, princesses, or Ferdinand the Bull. This makes sense because some of the main characters grow older as the story progresses. The role change takes place on stage, for example, by passing on the crown or the bull's horn to the next player. So now you may lean back and watch this group of children from the Bull Managers of Madrid. And they have a little verse And you see them in the way. This verse, you see it here in English, and now listen to them. They say it in German. Here they come. A rhythmic verse serves as the foundation for shaping the manager's performance. This musicalization of language provides the children with confidence and clarity for their acting, yet still leaves plenty of room for individual expression, as you could have seen. Now let's have another. Probably some of you knows this room. This room number 5, yes. And I'm not sure, I think there's nobody from this special course group here. Is there somebody there? Okay. So let's see this fantastic moment. I had the privilege of teaching this fantastic group. They explored the scene from the story King Bounce I. The country's ministers have gathered to discuss a terrible situation. The king is bouncing in bed at night. They simply cannot tolerate this. See yourself just how creative this group was.
We are the ministers, we decide what is proper in the kingdom's sight. We are the ministers, we are the ministers, we decide what is proper in the kingdom's sight. We are the ministers, we decide what is proper in the kingdom's sight. In the kingdom's sight. Did it have something to do with wiggling? No, even worse. The king bounced.
Okay. I must apologize that my hand something shook while filming because I was laughing. So, this happens. Okay, we come to the end, and you'll find here this wonderful music, word, dance, drama, palm tree. And you will have that also in your handout, so then you can study it more in detail. We have some roots, and the roots represent the questions and challenges we face when working with stories. We all had that before. Do we understand what children understand? What kind of stories are there? And so on and so on. What criteria can help us identify stories that are well suited? And on one hand, the stories should describe the situations, concrete ones, and so on and so on. And then you have the branches, represent the rich speech material at our disposal, from the single word up to the whole story, or also the self-made story, of course, or a 4-line rhyme. And we have the fruits, represent a few desirable educational goals that the children can achieve through our work at best. What do we have there? We have the self-employment, concentration, responsibility, room for personal expression, or the growing and from self-esteem. So study this in your home. And now I just say thank you, and you have 3 questions to discuss, please. Yeah, you come.
So thank you very much for this wonderful keynote, and lots to look at on the palm tree. These are the 3 questions that you can discuss, 1 or all or 2 of them in your discussion groups after the break, but we do have 5 minutes for questions or remarks if anybody has something they would like to ask. Yes, there's a question here. There's a microphone coming.
Hello.
Wait, we can't hear yet. Wait.
You talked about difficulty levels of
Wait, we
children.
can't hear yet.
Louder?
Yes.
You talked about difficulty levels of children's book, and I was wondering, is there really a difficulty level, or are there ways, are there possibilities to play any difficulty level book with any age of children? Is it, for instance, a child at the age of 1 or 2 cannot understand the story of transformation, but perhaps we still have a way to teach it, and at some other point in its growing, it connects with it?
Ja, ich sage es kurz auf Deutsch. Also sie wollte wissen, ob diese Stufen, ob das immer so nur mit dem einen Buch ist oder ob man so ein komplexes Buch einfach gestalten kann.
This is a very good question. Of course, you can use a story in a different way. That's true. But sometimes it's the kind of story. If it's more complex, what is happening from one scene to the next, then this is sometimes too complicated for younger children. They are lost in such a story sometimes. So it's much easier to have something in the story which is always repeated, yeah? Coming back again. So this is for younger children a very good moment that they remember where they are. So a little bit like what I said, that like a rondo, yeah. So that you have stories for very young children that they are a little bit composed like a rondo, yeah. Something, for example, as I said, there are stories traveling around the world, visiting different parts of the world. So you always have the trip on the sea with a boat, yeah, or sometimes a bottle. A bottle is with a letter inside, is traveling around the world and coming to different places, and the child is getting out the letter. Somebody wants to be my friend. I want to be your friend. Painting himself, putting it back in the bottle, is thrown back into the sea and making this trip and arrives in another country. So this is something very easy from the form, and so this makes sense for younger children.
No, we need it for the live stream.
I just want to add something, because we did a lot of drama together. Of course, we work also with family groups and with mixed groups. And this is also an answer to your question. There are parts in the story that can be played by the younger ones. And sometimes there are some leftovers for the adults or the older children. And so you can mix that. It's not so clear that it's always, if you go beyond the classroom, but even in the classroom you have differences. Thank you.
Others, yeah.
Okay, so lots to think about, and you've got time after the break. You've got an hour in the discussion groups. And the rooms, the poster is hanging outside the door there. And as Krista said yesterday, if you go into a room and it's very full, please go to a different group so that the groups are not too big. Each group has got a moderator. Thank you once again, Manuela, and have a great break.
Ja, wir haben ein paar mitgenommen.
Ja,
ja, genau.